create a ripple effect all through the AFC. And not Pittsburgh or Baltimore, but everybody else just sort of, even New England. Like New England could get to the 1, but they'll need Denver to lose. Now, Justin Herbert is not going to play against Denver on the road. What are the odds? So does New England pull back? And then does Jacksonville? Well, Jacksonville still has to win their division. Maybe not so much there. And, of course, the Bills are a part of this. Like the Bills and the Chargers had a kind of similar layout for if they wanted to go for it to get to the 5, but the 5 is the highest they can go. And the Chargers are like, it's not worth it. I wonder if the Bills will end up saying the same. Sal Capaccio with us now, of course, on the field yesterday and with Sean McDermott at his press conference today. Did you get any sense of direction here from McDermott, Sal, today on which way he might be leaning for Sunday?
I guess I'd be reading the tea leaves a little bit, which is what you're asking me. I feel like Josh Allen's going to start to keep the starting streak alive, and then they'll get him out of there, whether that's one play or a series. Now, it has been pointed out to me, and it's right. He's 1 TD away from 40. That could mean something for sure. I don't know about like contractual incentives and things like that. Joe Brady even mentioned that when someone asked him about it on the Zoom call we just had. The Bills, remember, last year put James Cook in after they got down near the goal line to get him that extra touchdown to break the record or tie it last year. So the big picture, though, Mike, I get the sense the Bills will prioritize getting guys healthy. The issue here is, though, even if that's the case, you can only dress 48 players, and you can only elevate 2 from the practice squad. It's not like you can go with a preseason roster here. There's not 90 guys on the roster, right? So some guys are going to play. I think the Bills will play this game to make sure they are healthy enough to get into the playoffs and as healthy as they can be. But I also think they'll want to win the game with the guys on the field. You know what I mean?
Yes. Winning the game does mean a little bit. I mean, in the standings. I'm not talking about psychologically, but you're the 7 if you lose. And you'd like to be able to avoid that, if not for matchup reasons, just for the possibility of a home game later, remote as it might be.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm fascinated by the whole conversation of this part of it is one, right? Which is, do you prioritize the health of players? And I think they will, because they've been very banged up this year, and they have a lot of guys already now this week that are dealing with injuries, including Josh Allen. By the way, just on that, so everybody knows, McDermott said Allen is dealing with soreness. He is looking a lot like last week, but maybe in a better spot than he was early last week. So that's good news, obviously, because I think the foot clearly impacted him in some capacity yesterday. But he also said Terrell Bernard is going to be out for sure. They know that. Dalton Kincaid, Daquan Jones, Jordan Poyer, Jordan Phillips are all improving. But, I mean, even on those guys, you might want to kind of hold back. Now, Matt Prater might actually play. He said that he actually thinks that he should be able to play this week. Now, the part I'm fascinated about, though, is not just the resting guys. It's, do the Bills kind of have a hierarchy of order of how they want to, where they want to be, who they want to play, right? And how does everything that happens at 1 p.m. and then during their game impact that? I don't know if that's the case. That's really fascinating to me.
Yeah, it could a little bit, but if you have 2 heavy favorites going there with Jacksonville and Houston, and the likeliest scenario is the Jags. Would the Bills make an effort to avoid that in some way, is kind of your point, if they can? I don't know. Would you? Like, if I know it hasn't been ideal this year because of New England mostly, but if you're going to Jacksonville in round 1, I can live with that.
Yeah, I think the question, Mike, is a fair question, which is, if you're the Bills, like, do the Bills internally think there's a difference, and what would that difference be between going to New England or going to Jacksonville?
I would say no.
They prefer one or the other.
I would say no, because you might just get the other team the next week. You know, like, does the order is the question, I guess. Who do you want to play first? I doubt it would get that far. Do you disagree?
No, I don't. I do disagree a little bit. I think you have to think about those things and where those rosters are right now. You know, I mean, because a 1 week could make a difference on injuries too.
Sure.
I think you think about it. No, I don't think it's the end all be all though. I don't think you play the game to put yourself in a position because there's so much out of your control, right? But New England, they might be a heavy favorite, but they have nothing. I mean, yeah, they could try to win the 1 seed, but they're looking and going, okay, Herbert's not playing, so the Broncos are most likely going to win. How hard do we have to go for this, right? I mean, they may just say they might prioritize rest and say if we go for it and don't get it, what did we do there? We put guys in a position where they had to go an extra week where they could just start resting players. So I could see Miami winning that game. Suddenly New England falls to the 3.
A point within this is, all right, well, it's not a week off like the 1 seed that everybody covets, but it's a version of that. It's a lesser version of that where you're taking the pressure off, you're resting your most important players, and you might even find a coach who prefers that to the entire week off. I don't know if you will, but this week, if rhythm and continuity is a thing, you're able to continue with your routine, playing a game, but you're just not putting it all on the line in that game, rather than having players get away for a few days or whatever the 1 seeds guys would do normally. So I don't know. You can really get down the hole here pretty far. What on the point about the Bills and how they play Sunday, what is James Cook winning the rushing title worth, in your opinion?
I think it means something to them for sure. Now they'll know though. He's 47 yards up on Jonathan Taylor, but Taylor plays first. So if Taylor gets to 100 yards and James Cook needs, 50 yards, 53 yards, whatever, I think that would be important to them. They would want that. I think it's important to James Cook. James Cook said it's important to him and his family. And I think the Bills, they've treated these kinds of things in the past to be important to them. Remember a couple of years ago, they wanted to get the record of how many different guys caught touchdown passes, right? Last year, same thing with James Cook. As I said, they put him in. He came out of the game against New England, and then they put him back in to get a touchdown later. So I do think it matters to them.
They put him back in, and he got stopped, and they left him in last year in New England. So, yeah, no doubt. That was for the touchdown record, as I think you said. Well, working backwards, I guess, here, I've said it a few times today and then also last night. It really is a most unfortunate culmination to the stadium with all that it could have been. It's still, an important day for nostalgia and memories and this. But what's the fan mindset on Sunday? It's that, you compartmentalize it maybe. Like you have the stadium, but this is probably it, and it's not the end of the season. As opposed to even a non-playoff team, like a couple of drought teams, like Kyle Williams when he retired, where it's just like, oh, you have your party. And this is a different kind of party. There might be a more melancholy air to it than in another season because, the whole point is to win a championship, and they're going to have to go on the road to do it.
You know what's funny, Mike? I kind of look at it the other way a little bit here. I understand completely what you're saying, and there's no doubt. I remember when the schedule came out, and we said, man, if this is actually the last game, something went horribly wrong this year, right?
Yep.
Well, it might actually be the last game, and maybe something went horribly wrong. Thankfully, they're in the playoffs, but it looks like this will be the last game. And, you want to have it where it means something and they're going for a championship, but you also then don't know when the last game is going to come. And maybe they lose the last game and it ends your season. And that's really terrible. And you're like, man, I remember walking off the field against the Kansas City Chiefs a couple of years ago at home and walking off the field against the Cincinnati Bengals at home. And, man, that just sucks. It sucks at any point, but your last game, you're at home. If it's the last game at Highmark and you lose in the playoffs, that's how it's forever remembered. At least now, I would say the silver lining here is, and I'm not trying to, trying to spin it that way, but I do think, though, that you can have a little fun with it now. There's no angst. You know what I mean? Like, I think if they're in a position to try and win the division, there's a lot more angst going into this game as well. And it's like, you got to win. It's the last game. You're going for the division. There's so much surrounding it. It's the red helmets. It's all the memories. It's what everybody else is talking about. And I think you can go in this game, and you can now kind of more focus on, let's have some fun with this.
Very well. That'll be interesting to talk to fans about throughout the week. Sal Capaccio on the West Her hotline. Now to yesterday. We've gone completely backwards here in time. The last play, sure, is maybe the easy answer to this. It was there and Allen missed. Beyond that, what had the most to do with the Bills losing this game? Sal, would you say? I mean, it's not. I'm not going to point the finger at the defense here. I doubt you'll do that. No. But what was at the root of their problems offensively?
Critical mistakes in critical moments, and they do not have the type of team to overcome those as they have in previous years. The Bills have so much less margin for error this year on offense than they've had in previous years. When they make a mistake and a second down hold makes it a 2nd and 14, it is way too tough to overcome compared to years before. When they have a when they have a goal to go situation and they only get a yard and now suddenly they didn't advance the ball, or they get a negative play in some respect in any situation, they don't have the margin for error. When they have a fumble and a turnover, they don't have the margin for error. And to me, what happened yesterday was that came out big time. They totally outgained the Philadelphia Eagles, over 300 yards of offense. A normal day, not a great day, a regular day in the NFL, maybe even a little less than that. But oh my God, 331 to 190 was the total. 4.5 yards per play to 3.5 yards a play. How did they not win? Because they made mistakes they couldn't overcome. They don't have the team to overcome that anymore on offense.
Was it only one first down by Philadelphia in the second half coming on their first possession? That sound right? I mean,
Mike, you have to count the kneel down. It's a play. They had, counting that, they had 16 yards on 18 plays. If you don't count the kneel down, they had 17 yards on 17 plays in the second half. Jalen Hurts didn't complete a pass in the second half. He was 0 for 7. 13 of 20 in the first half, 0 for 7 in the second half, one first down. I mean, to lose a game like that, the defense did everything they could do. The only real kind of criticism I have for the defense yesterday is they gave up 2 very long third downs again early in the game. They gave up a third down and 10 and a third down and 12. And no, those are things that have happened a little too much this year. But whatever. I mean, they allowed 13 points. A short field is why Philadelphia really scored a touchdown. And that wasn't a great drive by the defense, but they did everything to keep this game within reach for the offense. And the offense for 55 minutes did not score a point. And that's unacceptable. You can't have that happen.
after their first possession of the second half, Philadelphia 13 plays for 3 yards in the game.
Amazing.
Pretty good.
I mean, they punted 5 straight possessions. The Bills' run defense, which has been not good this year, against Saquon Barkley and the Eagles, the Bills did a great job. They held them to 82 yards rushing. They held Barkley to less than 4 yards a carry. And they basically just came in with a game plan and said, we are going to shut down Saquon Barkley and force Jalen Hurts to beat us throwing the ball, and he couldn't do it.
He had that situation very late in the game, 8 seconds or 18 seconds, and there's going to be a 10-second runoff. And the camera was glued to Sean McDermott as he stood next to an official waiting to call timeout. But he chose to not do it immediately. Did he get a question about that? I thought maybe he wanted to see Philadelphia line up, but I don't think the Bills lined up.
Unfortunately, no. It's good. I now that I think about it, would have been a good question. My inclination at the time was he just wanted to make it the last play of the game. He didn't want to leave any time on the clock.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So you let it go down a couple seconds, you call timeout, and then because if you call timeout right there, because the Bills could have chosen, by the way, in that situation, each team had an opportunity to use a timeout in lieu of the 10-second runoff. They decided not to. Each team wanted the 10-second runoff, and the Bills decided we're also not going to call timeout here. We'll let it run down a couple seconds, then we'll call timeout. So while I don't know the official answer, I believe it was because they wanted to make it the last play of the game.
And for all the grief a lot of us have given McDermott for that defensive timeout that he is so fond of, a lot of coaches are, Philadelphia did it before the 2-point play. And what happened on the 2-point play? Wide open receiver. So I wonder if coaches ever see the math. I guess I don't have the math myself, but it just seems, anecdotally at least, it just seems so common where you get the defensive timeout. All right, let's get everything buttoned up, and then boom, it breaks down anyway.
Well, and by the way, there was another play, even though he did call timeout there. They had the onside kick. The onside kick, there was time left to try and do that. There's a lot that always gets said about those defensive timeouts. I know fans get frustrated with it. I mean, the other thing you're doing when you call the timeout is you're forcing the other team to go to their second best option a lot of times. So if you see what they're in, yes, there's a snapshot timeout. Well, people say, well, what does it matter? They're going to switch. Well, that might be the point. You call a timeout, you're forcing them to go to something else that they wanted to do. So there's always been also a little back and forth of, well, maybe you go out there with your second best look, you wait for them to call timeout, and then you go to your best look. So there's always a cat and mouse game. I never have a problem with coaches doing that. I mean, you want to get to your best play and you want to have time to think about it. And the Bills had more time to think about it because they thought they scored the touchdown on the previous play, and they were ready to go for 2, Mike. They had called for a 2-point conversion. They were on the field, and they had all that time for the review. So they had a ton of time to figure out what play they wanted to run.
Sure. It's also something you might think about every day all year. We had a conversation. Yeah. I'm not sure if you were a part of it. Bulldog and I had a conversation like, what are you running on the 2-point conversion for your season? We talked about this last week. Like, what are you running? That wasn't quite it, but close enough. I mean, this is the game on the line. do you think, like, does the play call work for you? I know he was open, so it wasn't like they didn't. I mean, they got what they wanted, I guess, from the play call, which was an open Shakir. I might have guessed that it's Allen and, 5 guys pushing him forward from the 2, but maybe his injury has something to do with that. He did score 2 rushing touchdowns, even still.
It's a little too far for me to go tush push. I think 1 yard, maybe 2 yards is tough, especially with that interior line. I mean, the way Jalen Carter was playing, I think that's a little too far, plus the injury. Okay, so does the play work for me? I'm going to be results based when I say this. I mean, it was a great play design. It worked. Josh just missed him, right? So, I mean, like, I don't know if there's anything you can complain about the play design. Khalil Shakir did say, by the way, after the game, it is something they had been working on. It is something that you keep in your back pocket. You don't show that play until you get to that moment, because if you show it, then you can't run it again. So you have that set, and you're right. What do you run if you get to a 2-point play and your season's on the line? You have a couple of 2-point plays that are kind of in your play sheet, in your arsenal, because maybe you have a couple during the game, but you do something that you've been working on and practicing and holding back, like the hook and ladder. That's something that they had been working on, but you only bring it out on a gotta have it moment. I thought, and I still believe, like, the best option here, even though the play actually worked, would be Josh Allen rolling with options. Put the ball into your best player's hands, Josh Allen, let him get on the move, and he's so good at running into the end zone or flicking it to somebody or throwing it to somebody, kind of like the 4th down play that didn't work earlier, but probably should have if he sees Brandon Cooks or he throws it to him. Mm-hmm. That's because Josh Allen's going to draw so much attention when he rolls to his right that generally I think someone's going to be open, and if somebody stays home, he can take it. That, to me, was going to be the play and should have been, but I have no issue with the play they ran because it worked to perfection.
Then you can also
sneak the execution.
You can also sneak your extra lineman out to the left flat, and he walks in on that play you're thinking of. Two more quick ones. Kincaid, Eric Wood pretty much said it. Dan Orlovsky in a clip that I heard kind of said it. Basically, that Kincaid is the skeleton key here to this offense, and then whenever he's ready, it's a whole different ball game. The Bills' offense. I don't know. Like he's been on the field a lot. They've had good days and bad. I know their numbers, points-wise, are at least a little better when he's been on the field this year. I still think the sample size is a little small for my taste. How important is Kincaid?
He's really important. And I don't think that when you talk about this, or anybody talks about this, they should just focus on Kincaid's production. What it does is it allows, right now, like, there's no other threat on the team, and he gives you a threat in the middle of the field. And because you struggle so much on the outside, at least that gives opportunity for guys on the outside to have a little bit more of a softer landing spot maybe on routes, right? Which is, okay, if you have to focus on Dalton Kincaid in the middle of the field, maybe I have another option outside where I normally wouldn't. Because right now, there's nothing like that. Yeah, you can throw it to Dawson Knox. They had a nice play action where that happens, but he's not a guy teams are focusing on. So I just think it comes down to how everybody kind of fits in a little bit better and has maybe an easier path to do what they have to do when Dalton Kincaid is. And yes, he is a good player, and he also can be a good matchup for you, obviously.
Okay, and one more, and this is also one we've been over and over, but my word for this is it's astonishing to me that with all the flux at receiver and for as little production as they're getting week to week, that Coleman isn't any part of it. Like, it's not that he was that productive, Sal, but they're going into these games grasping at straws at wide receiver. McCole Hardman, no, released. Gabe Davis, Brandon Cooks. And Coleman isn't even dressed. It's astonishing.
Well, but Mike, you answered your own question earlier. I heard you. They don't trust him. Simple as that. They don't trust him, I think. That's what it comes down to right now. And, I think there's off-the-field stuff there. And when you have a pattern of not being trusted off the field, then coaches aren't going to trust you on the field. If you're not going to do the little things that get you to Sunday, then how can we trust you do what you're supposed to do on Sunday? And on top of it, I think there's eyes on you. There's people watching. There's other players in the locker room who understand I'm doing everything I can. And, if he's not doing everything he can, why is he playing or being rewarded? And I'm not saying that's necessarily going on, but that's how football teams and organizations work. And I just think they're at a point where if he's not going to do the things that we need him to do, or we can't trust him off the field, then how are we going to trust him on the field? And we're not going to reward him for that. This week would be a week to play him, though, because if you're going to rest guys and, have guys out there who are, backups, so to speak, or whatever, put him out there and let him see and show, hey, we're going to put you out there. But Now the challenge is you go make plays against a Jets team that looks terrible right now. And we're going to throw you the ball, and you're going to make plays. And I think that's his opportunity this Sunday, maybe.
Very similar to last year. Remember last year in New England, which was a Trubisky-Mike White game, he got 10 targets and went 2 for 31 on 10 targets. I mean, it's not Josh Allen, in fairness to Coleman. I wonder if they'll throw that out in the playoffs, or if the calculus changes on, about how many meetings he missed or whatever it is. We'll see in time. Sal, any fantasy sweats? Last game of the season tonight?
No, none for me. I was in my semifinals in my 2 big leagues both last week and lost in both. And of course, this week, the one same team outscores everybody, and I would have won the championship if I was in it, but that's the way it rolls in fantasy.
That's how it goes sometime. I know a guy who's got a pretty good one, if I might be able to share. So I host ADP Chasing, a fantasy podcast, every Tuesday through the offseason, then once a month during the season. The man I replaced as the host of that show, Sam Sherman, is playing for $2 million tonight.
No way.
Best Ball Mania, the signature best ball tournament that thousands of people enter, $25 a pop. He's in first place going into tonight. I think Pitts and Puka are bad for him, but he's got a great look at it. He had Purdy and Burden. What a night.
Wow.
You're in that position. You get 5 more touchdowns from Brock Purdy and Luther Burden over 100. And how about it? I mean, I don't know this guy very well. I've talked to him and his brother once or twice.
Do you know what he needs, or what would hurt him, like how he loses?
Only as much as I just said. Like, I don't know numbers because there are too many other people who would be, candidates to win it, depending on what happens tonight. But I think Puka and Pitts are bad for him, which is not the best position, not the best 2 guys to have to fade in a game like this. But
that is amazing.
Who knows? Could be a very big night. And one of my co-hosts on that show, Pat Corain, has already won this tournament for $2 million the year of the Hamlin game.
Man, you're just hanging out with people, millionaires, winning millions all over the place. A buddy of mine had won the $1 million, whatever it was, Al Zeidenfeld a few years ago, and he had done a fantasy show for many years.
I know that name. All right, so eventually you'll find out how this went. I'll be sure to update you. Thank you, Sal.
You got it.
Sal Capaccio's appearances on WGR brought to you by Outlet Liquor, George Urban Boulevard in Depew, your place to buy a case. Outlet Liquor, what's your outlet? Coleman, Kincaid, yesterday in the rain, the end of the stadium, the playoff bracket, how hard to try. No shortage of topics around here on this Buffalo Bills Football Monday. 803-0550 for your calls. I'll be looking for them until 6. Brian Koziol will join me then. We'll talk a little Sabres as they go for their 9th straight win tonight. I'm Mike Schopp, and this is WGR.